Hello and welcome to Brimwood Farm. So we've all heard the positives about having a homestead, right? You get to spend more time with your family, it's a more chilled way of life, you're growing your own food, you might be off grid. But what about the difficulties? So coming up, I've got 5 challenges you might face, especially in an urban environment with homesteading. So number 1, space. And it's kind of the overall umbrella challenge to many other problems you might face. Now while I talk, we're actually going to walk the entire length of my small holding so you can see just what a small space I'm dealing with. It's only about 45 square metres. Now it's about 3 times the size of my garden in London, which was absolutely minuscule. So when I came here I was very, very excited, but I wasn't actually homesteading. Now I am. A massive challenge that I face and that you might face in an urban environment is a lack of space, and how to get as much as you can and be as efficient as you can in that space. Now that is it. Everything that you've just seen behind me is my small holding. I have got a little bit of extra land here, so this is just my poultry yard and a shed, but behind that shed it goes no further. Out that gate is not my land. So if you're trying to, good old Barry, always crowing. If you're trying to smallhold on a small urban space, it can be very challenging. Number 2 is neighbours. So I'm just going to spin around so you can see how close I am to all of my neighbours. So you can see that I'm in a very urban environment. Now I am personally very, very lucky because all my immediate neighbours tend to buy eggs, they like the animals, and I haven't had any problems so far, and we've been here now 3 years and it's not been an issue. However, having talked to many of you online and through the live streams and watch videos, I know that there can be huge problems when it comes to neighbours, not just with livestock and noisy cockerels, but just that kind of way of life as well. A lot of people don't want to look out of their back garden, back window, and see the lawn has been dug up and replaced with raised beds, that you've got chickens running around, that your carport is no longer a carport, it's actually fruit trees. They just don't like it. And there's something about the noise of a cockerel that really gets people's backs up. Now sometimes people go through the proper channels and get council members out to come and see that you're looking after all your animals properly, but sometimes they also take it into their own hands, and I've heard horror stories of poison thrown over fences, people coming in and killing birds, and it's just horrible. So you really need to get your neighbours on board. Now if you're growing veggies, I would say just go for it. Maybe start off small. If you're in a very conservative area, start off small and grow it gradually. If you're dealing with cockerels in particular, I would go and talk to people first, just sort of gather some information, talk to them, answer any problems or queries or worries they've got, and take it from there. But it's definitely a major challenge, especially when you're in an urban environment. Number 3, poo. Do not underestimate just how much poo chickens produce, because it is a lot and you need a way to get rid of it. Now obviously if you only have 3 or 4 birds, the amount of poo they're going to produce is little, and it's enough that you'll be able to compost or bag up and get rid of relatively easily. However, if you're doing things on a much larger scale, there is only so much space to get rid of poo. There's only so many manure heaps you can make, putting onto compost and that sort of thing. So you really need to think about how you're going to get rid of not only just the poo itself, but the soiled bedding. There's a lot of it, especially during the winter when they don't get to run out. And if you're in the UK and we face another lockdown, it's even worse, because then your birds are in a limited inside space. and you just get so much poo in soil bedding. So you really need to think about that, and it's a big challenge when it comes to an urban environment. Now, I do compost some of mine. It goes onto the compost heap. We also have a green waste recycling every week here as well. So some of the shavings and the poo I mix in with garden waste, and I get the council to take that away. I also bag up some poo and I take it up to the farm when we go, and I also give it to local allotments to get rid of. But it is something you really need to consider, because it's an amazing amount of poo that comes out of birds and the quail as well. Add a little bit of rain and it becomes really, really smelly as well. And then you get problems, as with number 2, with neighbours, because the last thing your neighbours want to be doing either is smelling loads of horrible chicken poo. So number 3 is definitely chicken poo, and you need to work out what you're going to do with it all. Number 4 is organisation. Now, as you know, in any small space, you have to be really, really organised to make sure it all works seamlessly and efficiently. And it is no different when you're working in a tiny urban smallholding. You have to be very precise about what you're doing and where everything's going. So for example, this winter we've had a ton of rain, and it has really got into the chicken coops and made them boggy and horrible. Now, I haven't got the space just to simply move those chicken coops to new, fresh, unboggy land. So it takes a lot of micromanaging and thinking, and actually a little bit more expense as well, in keeping those coops nice and dry. I also have to consider parasite build-up, because there may be more worms around, because they're going on the same land all the time, so I may need more wormer. And I also have to clean them out more often, because I can't just move them around fields and let the poo just dissolve and go away naturally. I have to physically take it all out and get rid of it. When it comes to seeds, again, one of the reasons I start my seeds off in January of the hardiest specimens is because I don't have the room to have thousands of seedlings growing and pricking out all at the same time in April. I just don't have the means, so I have to manage that very carefully, start off with some of the hardiest seeds I can in January and grow right through until May, June. The other thing is we try and eat about 27 chickens, meat birds here per year, which is one every fortnight. I do not have the space to hatch out and rear 27 birds in one go. So again, you need to think about staggering hatches if that's the sort of thing you want to do, so that you can cull birds throughout the year rather than all at once to stock the freezer. So organisation is key. It's a big challenge in any small space, and it's something you must think about when you're coming in to urban homesteading. And finally, the 5th challenge you might face in an urban smallholding is actually mental, and it's frustration. Now, funnily enough, I actually started this urban smallholding as a way to deal with my frustrations about not being on my farmland, because my farmland is a 2-hour journey away, and logistically and financially, we're just not able to move there, live on the land and actually farm it as yet. So I started this smallholding as a way to gain experience and kind of stave off my frustrations about not being able to do the whole homestead farming thing properly on my 40 acres. But after 3 years, I have kind of now maximised what I can do here, and that becomes a little bit frustrating, because you want to build more things, you want to build your business, you want to try new ideas, and you can't because you don't have room. So I was really intending on doing meat rabbits, and rabbits are a great urban homesteading animal because they're quiet, their poo doesn't smell, and their poo can be put straight onto beds, there's no rotting down required. But I've come to the conclusion that I simply don't have space. There is the danger of trying to do too much, grow too many vegetables, keep too many animals, and it just gets too much and on top of you, and you don't have the space to move things around. So, for instance, I find it very difficult here to quarantine because I just don't have space to keep quarantine birds. So I no longer buy in chicks or chickens. I have to hatch everything from a baby, from an egg, because I don't have space to quarantine. So if then I got rabbits as well, where would I quarantine rabbits? What would I do with all the babies before they were dispatched? There's just limitations to what you can do. So you need to be aware that there will be times when it becomes frustrating if you're urban smallholding, because you want to automatically build your business and your homestead, because at the end of the day, growing veggies and keeping livestock is extremely addictive. And once you get chickens, you'll want quail, and then you might want ducks, and then you might want turkeys or geese. And it starts to snowball. So just be aware that when you come into this, it is very addictive, it's very life-changing, and it can become frustrating. So those are my 5 challenges you might encounter on an urban smallholding. And I'm not in no way trying to put you off, because having a little urban smallholding, growing some veggies, keeping some chickens and livestock is fantastic. It's a great way of life. It's great to know where your food comes from and the provenance of what you're eating. But there are things that you need to consider. It's not all rosy, it's not all positive, and there are challenges that are going to crop up, and they're going to be different from if you lived right out in the countryside and had loads of acreage. So just in kind of summary, so the first one obviously is space, and that is the major factor, and that will actually impact a lot of the other things that you want to do. The second is your neighbours, and you do need to consider your neighbours and possibly talk to them, and also find out your legal rights, especially when it comes to keeping livestock, because it differs from county to county and from country to country. So just know where you stand in terms of the law in keeping livestock. Number 3 is poo. You do need to work out what you're going to do with all that poo, because there is a lot of it. Number 4 is organisation, and you do need to have a kind of a mind on management and thinking forward and forward planning on how you're going to work certain vegetable beds, how you're going to grow certain chickens on, when your chicks come out of the brooder, where they're going to go, that sort of thing. And then number 5 is just knowing and realising that there will be frustrations on the way. You will encounter frustrations, and it's getting over those frustrations that is the challenge, and once you're there you can move on, but you will get frustrated at times. We all do. So if you like the video, please give us a thumbs up, hit subscribe so you don't miss any future videos. If you're on Facebook, please come across and join my Brimwood Farms community group page, and I will hopefully see you soon. Bye.